there are massive water issues in Amaoti. This is on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. This is where residents are fetching their water from a river. Our reporter Linda Mnisi has been stationed there since morning. Linda, good morning to you, and we're back again. There is, I hate to say this, Linda, but I watch the visuals behind you with a bit of dread in my heart, because I'm thinking of, people possibly stamping over each other there. The sand that they are standing on, it's wet, and some of the people might be trampled. Why are authorities not picking up on this and actually trying to control this situation?
In fact, when we arrived here, Koli, residents said that they were quite relieved that at least, someone would tell their story, and maybe the issues here will be addressed in terms of how urgent they need the water. I mean, if you look at just the situation and the kids that are here, people just trying to do their best to make sure that they find themselves right at the front of that queue to get water. People have now taken turns to assist the community with getting the water. But since early this morning, Koli, you'll remember, there was a gentleman who was right next to that particular pipe giving residents water. He's wet from, top to bottom because of how daunting this task is. His name is Thembiso Ngcobo. Thembiso, ngibonga isikhathi sakho bhuti wami. Ngichazele mhlawumbe ukuthi niqale ukusebenza la nini?
La ukusebenza siqale since imvula igcinile ngesonto. Abantu shothi into eshayele la amapayipi kusikhukhula ashaye amapayipi awamuvela eceleni abreaker. So into esilimaza manje nje ubona abantu bekha amanzi la sizama ukuthi sibasize sibambe amabhakede ngoba indawo ime kabi, sibambe amabhakede siwanyisa sephezulu ukuze umphakathi ukwazi ukusizakala.
Abantu abalayo, abantu abasuka kuphi la Amaoti kuphela?
Cha, abantu abasuka la Amaoti kuphela ngoba sekhona abasuka phezulu kohlange nabasuka phezulu kokwazi bashawayo into efanayo nangala ezantsi mawukuthula ngala koMautana bashawa into efanayo, inkinga yamanzi njengoba usuku ubona nje. So bazama ukuthi babuyele ngala la amanzi atholakala khona. Mawungabuka nje nawo asethanda ukuncipha, ukutshengisa khona ukuthi aseyavaleka. Ofuthi masingasizakala basizame ngamatraki azama ukuthi angene ngaphakathi alethela abantu amanzi.
And of course indaba yokuphepha kwenu lana. Niphephile mhlambe ngoba ngiyabona nomgwaqo uwile la esayidini ukuze kuphume wona lamanzi umgwaqo uwile.
Yebo, lokho kuyiqiniso impela. Mawuthi uyabuka umgwaqo awuphephanga ngoba mawuthi uyabuka mawusuwale ezantsi amanzi ehlile andene angenile alimaza amapayipi, okusho kona ukuthi umgwaqo nawo awuphephanga ngoba ususele kancane la kuhamba khona pavement, la kuhamba khona abantu awusekho nje uhambile enhlobo. Okusho kona ukuthi abantu sefe bahambe ngale ngakwa left benze ukuthi amanzi bangakwazi ukuthi bathole ingozi. Ingozi inkulu baba, inkulu kakhulu. Njengoba abantu bekha kanjena nje anything engenzeka ngenzeke injury.
Yini mhlambe eniwumphakathi eningathanda ukuyibona yenzeka?
La Amaoti into esingathanda ukuthi sibone yenzeka ukuthi kube khona ingoquko, amanzi akwazi ukuthi azi ukuthi amanzi ahamba phi, angadabule endlini zabantu angene phakathi. Ngoba manje mawuthi uyibheka indawo yethu indawo engekho esimeni esiright ukuthi yakhiwe kahle. Kunendawo ezihamba amanzi and ayageleza agcine kwezindawo eseqhamuka endlini zabantu, kwezindawo ayangena afika avale ama-driveway abantu. So indawo ayikho nje kahle. Bengasiza nje ukuthi basakhela ama-drain, basifakela ama-manhole ngoba asinawo ama-manhole. Abantu bambe imigodi la. Mefuna ukubumba ithoilet fanele asuke ngala eze ngala, magcola ngala amuve eze ngala. Bengasiza lapho nje ngakwazi ukuthi umphakathi usizakala ngoba sinengane ezincane ebadinga i-future egcineni kusasa.
That is Thembiso Ngcobo talking to us about the situation here in Amaoti, saying that in fact ever since the flood started they've been working here trying to get water for community members. As a result of the collapse of the sideway or the sidewalk rather of the road, that pipe started releasing water, and he says that as you look at it, the water is starting to be small and not enough for everybody. But as you can see, a number of people trying to get there and make sure that they are just in time to get the water. Also speaking about the kinds of people that are coming here, saying that it's not only residents from Amaoti, it's residents from also neighboring communities coming to this point. It's been packed like this since early in the morning. There's really no difference in terms of, when we were here like an hour ago to now. It seems people just keep coming. If you look on this side, this is the entrance to this place. As you can imagine, it's uphill, so a lot of people come from this side. But also, Stembi is also telling us about, the issue around what could be the solution for now, saying that if there could be at least water trucks that are getting into the community, the issues around the risks that are affiliated or associated with being here next to a road that has already collapsed could really be minimized, because a lot of people could be injured if they are here. Another issue is, of course, the issue around the water infrastructure in the community, saying that the water infrastructure itself, with no floods, with nothing, is actually not adequate. I just want to show you how difficult it is, in fact, to walk in these, in this particular area. I'm wearing boots myself, and I'll ask my colleague to just come with me so that we can show you around in terms of how difficult it is. You spoke earlier on to me about how slippery this place is, and a lot of people that are here are not as lucky as me to be wearing these water boots. They are walking here barefoot. If you see those children, a number of them are here barefoot, and this is actually the last resort, because if you come here with your nice shoes, they might also be damaged as you get closer. Young girls, also young boys, the young and the old, making sure that they're trying and they can get to the top. And occasionally, the people at the top would empty their buckets, which came with just small amounts of water. They would empty their buckets on top of the people that are gathered here. So you already see how dangerous it can actually get as more and more of them try to go up. Here, just on the ground, how slippery the place actually is. So it gives you an indication of how dangerous the situation. That gentleman over there who has now taken over, standing on top of that pipe, one can't, help but imagine, the possibility of danger. And Stembiso explains it, that in a situation like this, in a country that has a responsive government, you'd already have water tanks in affected areas going in and around to make sure that people don't have to come to areas such as these to get water.
I want to stay with you for some time on this situation, but I want to ask a different question, which is slightly linked to what Stembiso was talking to you about, and it's got to do with planning around infrastructure. The area of Amaoti, just how far is it from your central business district? For example, how far is it from the area of eThekwini, or is it perhaps even closer to the area of Umhlanga? What I'm trying to get here, Linda, is geographically, is this an area that is far-flung, where you could almost say it's a rural part of central Durban, if you like? And part of the reason I'm asking this question has to do with the failure to plan by authorities.
In fact, to get to this point, it took us about 20 minutes coming from Umhlanga, coming from the central business district. It took us about 20 minutes. So the people who live here ordinarily, you'd find that a lot of them actually work in the city. This is the labor force of the city. It's not very far from that central business district, and one can only imagine what they're going through at this particular moment, also having to skip work in an economy like ours, where children need to be taken care of, where families still need to be fed. We're seeing how they're just scrambling and fighting for water, which is really at this point speaks to how inhumane the situation has gotten here on the ground. So from where we are, it's not a long distance, Tony. I don't know how long it would take using public transport, of course, but you also drive around the area and you see quite a number of people in the streets, which tells you that the impact of these floods have been huge. Children have not been able to go to school as a result of the floods. I told you earlier about how certain things are sometimes thrown to the people who are here on the ground, and we've just witnessed something being thrown at the people who are here. Yeah, in fact, at my colleague, Sibongiseni, who has just had to, make sure that he's safe. But as I was saying, the issue around the distance between where we are and the central business district and the impact that we're seeing here on the ground, it has affected everybody. You would swear we are in the holiday season because everybody is in the township.
The situation you are describing there, it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's worrying because there could be a trampling of each other there by the people. And you raised a very important point a little earlier about water tanks. Is that something that is even in the offing by authorities, who are telling us at this stage that in terms of the emergency services to attend to families who've lost loved ones, those people are overstretched? I'm trying to think of water tankers that could attend to this situation so that it alleviates the situation we are seeing now. In your view, authorities, would they be able to even give an indication as to the availability of these water tankers?
Well, Polly, earlier you'll remember authorities were saying that, they'd be allocating resources to the affected areas. But you also listen to what Sebiso has said, right, about the issue of getting, in fact, how long it has taken since the flood started. He speaks about around Monday or Sunday that this situation has been going on. One then begs, it then begs the question of whether authorities are not aware of, the situation, and whether or not, given the history of KwaZulu-Natal with floods, that they are not aware that people would be affected like this, and emergency tankers would have to be, deployed to such areas where you're seeing suddenly there isn't water. Obviously, the desperation will grow and people will come to such areas risking their lives, a possible, danger to their lives coming to get water here. But, from what, from the reception also that we got from the residents, it seems they have been making desperate calls because they also said, we're glad that you guys have arrived to see what the situation is like here. And we just so happened to stumble upon this place, Toli, as we were headed to another location, and which then the desperation scream, as we saw people with their wheelbarrows carrying those buckets coming to this area. At this point, there is no indication, perhaps from where we are standing, of when government exactly will be bringing those water tankers to assist the now desperate residents.
Linda, I'm just thinking out aloud as well about the South African National Defence Force, that we were told some time ago that there are indications that they will be deployed. We were told that they are on standby. The President touched down yesterday in KZN, went around looking at severely affected areas. Why is the army not on the streets just yet? Or am I possibly speaking out of turn? Maybe you may have spotted some men in camouflage.
In fact, Oli, earlier this week, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 2 days ago when we were told that the army would touch down here in KZN to assist, and we reached out to them in terms of what exactly the plan would be, and at the time they told us that they were still strategizing in terms of how they were going to come here on the ground. We were told of meetings in the security cluster that were happening to try and get to the ground and assist the people who have been affected by these floods. The only time that I've managed to spot any camouflage was yesterday in Newzroom. That was when the chopper believed to be belonging to the SANDF was flying around that particular area. On the ground, I haven't necessarily, spotted any SANDF members. You'll remember in areas such as the Mfuleni municipality in Gauteng, they've been deployed before to deal with the issues of the water treatment plant. So we understand that they would have the resources even in fact the capability and the skills to deal with such issues, to assist on the ground. But of course, the picture that we're seeing now is that there hasn't been any assistance to some communities, and as a result, they're going out to try and, make a means to an end, really, to try and at least carry on with their lives while they wait for other services.
Well, but you see, that's exactly the situation here, Linda, that really gets government, or should I say, gets people annoyed with government, because as much as we may be willing to excuse the level of inadequacy in terms of planning, because this is a natural disaster, but it would not have been this worse had we had proper infrastructure, proper running infrastructure, especially coming out of the 2019 floods. If there was adequate planning, the situation would not be as worse as it is right now. But then what exacerbates people's anger sometimes is the time it takes for government to put in place emergency measures, like, for example, deploying the army, because talking about the army, you've already mentioned that they have engineers there. They also have the medical personnel who are part and parcel of the South African Army. So those are the kinds of services that army personnel can quickly be able to assist with, particularly in situations such as where you are right now. The president, as we understand it, he has to of course, authorize the deployment of the South African National Defence Force, but the understanding is that there has to be some kind of consultation even with National Parliament. What would be standing in the way, or what would be taking so long for the South African National Defence Force to deploy in KZN? Because the South African National Defence Force is deployed pretty quickly if we are to assist in neighboring countries, for example. And just talking about neighboring countries, yesterday I couldn't help but read the tweet that was sent out by the president of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, who was commiserating with his South African counterpart. And I'm just thinking that many a times we have seen the SANDF being deployed in Zimbabwe, being deployed in Mozambique, particularly with the issue of floods. Why is it taking so long for them to deploy here at home?
And it's unclear, Koli, why indeed it has taken so long for the SANDF to hit the ground, or at least to show that there has been a deployment on the ground. You'll remember also during the time of COVID-19, they were deployed on the ground, the president urging them to go and serve the nation. This is the time also to go and serve the nation, but we haven't really on the ground. I don't know about other areas, but where we have been, I'm talking about areas such as, your Ntuzumas, your Clermonts, your Amaoti, we haven't been able to see, the SANDF here on the ground, and which is something that perhaps the resident would have also appreciated. You'll remember some areas yesterday saying that they are quite displeased with the manner in which the president's visit is being conducted, because to them it seemed like a cover-up of the extent of the damage and the situation here on the ground. Some saying that it would not help taking the president to areas that are okay. There are people that have been affected, which the president has to take into account. The president himself yesterday conceding that this is indeed a situation that needs urgent intervention, saying that they have seen, what it looks like, but of course, a couple of days down the line, since this thing has happened, we are not, in fact, seeing any changes. The danger that is now put on these young lives that we are seeing here. I mean, look at this boy. I'll just step to the back. Look at how short he is and how he's just carrying one bucket, trying, of course, to make it to the front, where there are already scores and scores of people who are also just battling to make it to the front and get some water. The dangers, of course, could have been anticipated, like you say, given the fact that KZN has a history of floods, and it is not so long ago that, they've been here. Just in 2019, there were floods that claimed the lives of about 70 people. We've long passed that figure of 70 people. This is big, and it shows you how big it is, because the death toll keeps rising. People are looking for their loved ones. People are displaced. People have no electricity, they have no water, and now it seems government will have to be chasing after the desperate residents to make sure that they don't further endanger their lives. Now the target will no longer be, cushioning the impact of the floods. It's now a race against making sure that communities don't get to such areas. We're seeing, a part of where the residents are standing falling, which shows you it is dangerous here.